Hello, this is Joseph Gillette Sr. with Venture Capital Cross, talking about ECPs. We do like acronyms in Wall Street. That stands for Eligible Contract Participant. And why this is important for private markets investors mostly is because if you want to engage in a forward agreement, if a company doesn't allow direct transfer, many counterparties will try to do a security forward agreement. The only problem is with an SFA, both the buyer and the seller need to be an ECP. So the issue is that most sellers of forwards are going to be employees, and employees typically would not be an ECP, but even the seller has to be an ECP. Now, that's very unusual. Typically, in a private investment like a Reg D offering or another kind of private offering, the buyer needs to be accredited, but the seller could be non-accredited. In a typical direct share sale, for example, a Ripple employee does not have to be accredited to sell their shares to an accredited buyer. But for a forward contract, because a forward is a derivative, the CFTC basically said a few years ago that the buyer and the seller need to be an ECP. So what is an ECP? This is Investopedia. An ECP is a financial institution, insurance company, broker-dealer, or an investor with 10 million in assets. And that's liquid cash. That's not stock. That's not some level 3 value. The requirements are smaller if the main activity is hedging. And many people try to use this loophole, but you want to make sure that you're actually doing the activity that is creating this box to tick, which would be hedging investment risk. And there's going to be some more rules and definitions. I'll put the link to this in the description of the video. The bottom line is that if you're dealing in derivatives and the regulators have considered a forward agreement a derivative, you're going to need to be an ECP. And even I've heard that some crypto exchanges like Kraken are requiring you to be an ECP to do certain kinds of trading. And that's probably because of the same definition that these are derivatives and you have to be an ECP. So this is actually something from the futures market, from the commodities hedging instruments. So like if, for example, you have a bunch of corn and you want to sell your corn forward, or you want to hedge that delta that the corn isn't going to sell or that the price is going to change until you sell it, farmers usually engage in complex derivatives to hedge that risk. And most farmers are an ECP. If let's say that you're, well, if you skip the big farms, even a small farm may have 10 million in assets, a corn farm, and they are the kind of natural customers of such a contract. So someone who is going to need a derivatives contract is someone who has a lot of assets. In other words, these contracts are designed for hedging, not for investment purposes. So a forward kind of snuck in there. It's not naturally there. What's naturally there? I mean that if you're a big farm and you're using swaps or different kinds of hedging instruments to hedge, you probably have 10 million in assets, because if you didn't have 10 million in assets, there's no need to hedge. I mean, if you're just a small kind of family farm and you've got just some couple of acres of corn, you're not going to be engaging in complicated derivatives because you don't really have a sufficient amount of corn or whatever crop that you need to hedge. So in other words, people that engage in derivatives are usually institutions, insurance companies, banks, or big farms, big organizations, because then you have a risk that you need to hedge. So that's more info about what is an ECP, and we'll put the description and link to this definition in the description of the video. Thank you and have a great day from Venture Capital Cross.